My local truck market is crazy. The prices have been going up year over year, and honestly, it seems hard to find a good truck nowadays for under 10 grand. So that's why when I found a truck sitting on the side of the road for $1,500, I knew I had to jump on it. Now it was damaged, but I'm not afraid of fixing things up. The problem was when we bought it, it was damaged more severely than we thought, and the frame was twisted. All in all, from buying the truck and unfortunately fixing the frame, we spent $6,500. With a budget of only $3,500, I'm going to have to get really creative in saving money. I'm going to be doing all of the labor myself and carefully selecting parts that can help me save a few bucks. Now the truck is all fixed up cosmetic damage. From the outside, it looks awesome, but if you get a little bit closer, it has quite a few problems that we still need to address. In this video, I'll be tackling 3 things that we need to fix with the truck. And that's 1, tearing out all of the old suspension and rebuilding it / adding new components. 2, while we're down in there and all the suspension is out, I'm going to be grinding down the frame and repainting it so it won't rust out. And number 3, I'll be adding new wheels and tires for traction. Come along with me and I'll show you a step-by-step way to easily and affordably mod your truck for 2026. First thing before we're working on the truck, let's get it all washed up. So while we're working on it, no dirt and debris fall on us. Let's go. The next step of this process is getting all the grime off the frame. Honestly, using this as a work truck around the farm, I go through mud, I go through a bunch of grease, and it sticks to the bottom of the frame. Today we're using this simple green product. I did some looking online, and this is like a industrial grade degreaser. So what we're going to do is put some of this degreaser in this bottle, go all along the frame, spraying it down. Smells pretty good. This thing is extremely strong. You only use a little bit and it should last you your entire frame. Honestly, I'm only using this degreaser product because of the first time that I did work on my truck, the red one back there, I did not clean it at all. Every single bolt I touched just got everything right in my face. This is a preventative step we can take to make working on your truck way easier. All right, now we're just gonna go along the bottom, spraying this all along the frame. And you just leave it for a couple minutes and then wash it off with water. For what it's worth, this truck is extremely clean, especially being in my area, but it's just one extra level of precaution I like to take before repairing any frames. Now that we got the truck all degreased, it's time to put it on the lift and see what we're working with. All right, now that everything is set up and secured on the lift, and kind of walk you through the plan of what's going on with this truck. So this truck has been serving me awesomely on the farm. Super cheap to pick it up, and it hasn't let me down. However, the truck rides like a wagon. It is horrible with the suspension. So what we're going to be doing is step-by-step, systematically taking apart all of the suspension and rebuilding it with fresh components. Now what we have here is a independent front suspension from GM. So it rides great down the road, but honestly, after 20 years of use, this thing is pretty beaten up. As you can see, the tie rods here are extremely thin, and under load they're susceptible to break. The ball joint angles are pretty much blown out and are leaking quite a bit. The alignment angles are off from all of the load put on it. On top of that, the shocks are completely blown out. So what we're gonna do is take apart all of this, strip it all down, repaint the surface of the frame, and make this thing function like a truck again. The first step in this process is unloading the torsion bars. As you can see in the suspension system, all of the load is put up on this torsion key that twists this bar, that twists this lower control arm, that gives you that lift. Now this actual bar is under immense stress. It's pretty much holding up the entire front end of the truck. So what I did is I went to my local auto parts store and I picked up this thing. For those of you who don't know, this is a GM torsion bar tool. What that's going to allow us to do is apply pressure to the key and take all of the weight off of the front truck suspension. All right, the first step of this is obviously applying a bunch of lubricant to the bolt. Before we did anything, I applied a bunch of PB Blaster and kind of soaked this entire area. And before you put any power tools on it, it's a good idea to loosen everything up, make sure it spins. There we go. And we can get our real gun impact, kind of take it down a few notches. So what we just did there is took all of the pressure off that key, and now that key is resting on this plate right here. We can now use the torsion unloading tool. Slide your tool on up, tighten her up a little bit. Once we make sure this piece is kind of resting on our cross member, we can take this bolt out. Just like so, easy peasy. Switch over to your torsion key. Make sure it's kind of locked in. And you should be able to take this little piece off, and then very carefully you just let go of the pressure. And just like that, the spacer part is out and our torsion key is free and ready to slide out. Time to do the same thing on the other side. All right, now that both sides are out and both keys are loose, pretty difficult part will be separating the torsion bar from the actual key. Now these torsion bars here are notoriously hard to hit out because usually they've got a slight gap in between, and what happens is it rusts and corrodes all the way around and makes it impossible to take out. Luckily though, I do have an air hammer, so we can use air power to hopefully hit them out from the keys. The keys should just drop right out. Always wear your protection, but we'll see how this goes. All right, even with air power, very hard to get out. Like I said, very corroded, very rusted on the inside, but nothing a little heat can't fix. We're gonna heat up this key, and especially since we're replacing it, we don't exactly need it. So burn, baby, burn. There we go. Now, heating this key should expand that hole a little bit, so when they hit it out, it should be a little bit bigger gap. All right, let's see if the air hammer can help us out here. There we go. Loose just a little bit. It's a part of it. I think we might just have to cut both sides out, and that's the unfortunate part, but sometimes that's how it goes. What we're doing now is with the oxyacetylene torch, we are applying an extreme amount of heat to the actual bottom. Hopefully we can have a split in the key, and that should relieve the pressure, allowing us to drive out the actual torsion bar.
Pull it out.
Hey, there we go. That's all you need to do.
Good job, Ethan.
That is split apart at the bottom. Beautiful. I don't know, what do you say? Do the same thing to the other side?
Yeah, you want to just try heating that. I think just heat. It was twofold, heat and then cutting it, and it just expanded so it can...
I don't know, heat is just so much easier. Whenever you can, use heat.
Interesting design.
All right, as you can see, we absolutely decimated these torsion keys. I mean, there's still smoke in it. I'm not sure if the camera can pick that up, but still pretty hot. Those are done and toasted. Next thing we got to do, now that all the pressure is off the front suspension, we're going to take off the front wheels and start taking off components. There we go.
All right, Ethan's been working in the shop literally like all day. We're gonna go check in on him right now. We got some pizza. Right? Ethan likes pizza. Ethan, how's it going, bro? We brought you some pizza.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna need some fuel during my rebuild. Now it's time to pull everything off, get everything dripping down. I'll get this side, you guys got this side. Ready?
You got it. I'm sorry. Retake. Do it again.
All right.
One more time. Run it back.
Boy, you got that, Ethan. You got that.
No, run it back. Do it again. Do this one.
Yep, all right. We're gonna ignore them. We're gonna drop this side of the suspension, get it all out of here. I mean, we're gonna replace all this. Again, like I said, you got ball joint failure over here, a little bit of over greasing and ball joint failure here. Shocks that have been blown out. These are stock shocks, like 20 years old. So we are definitely gonna be freshening up this entire front end. Let's get into it.
I'm excited. This is gonna be awesome. I'll work on this side. You work on that side.
Time lapse, baby.
Let's do it.
Oh, we are in the middle of a time lapse that you're watching. There's a mouse in my brakes.
Goodness. Little buddy got smashed.
Dude, that's why my brakes were squeaking.
Oh my.
How did he get there?
What the heck? Oh my word.
What do you bet there's another mouse on the other side?
We'll see about that one. All right, just a quick rule of thumb to anyone doing this in future. Do not unplug this port and try to snake it up. When you take this actual hub off, just disconnect this line, because I don't think I should have disconnected that. I was like, oh shoot, put it back. We'll see if it gives us any issues, but that should be the last thing so before I can pull off the actual hub assembly. All right, so took off the top bolt, took off the bottom bolt, disconnected ABS line, so hopefully just a couple of smacks. This thing should be free. I guess I should take out the CV axle first. Let me do that real quick. Alright, that's out of the way, and actually being in here a little bit made me forget about this tie rod that I also have to take off. So let's first remove the CV axle. Oh man. It's always just one more thing, right? And that one thing turns into like 10 things pretty quick. Isn't that funny how that works? There we go. All right, this should spin this, and this should hold that. Woohoo! Woo! Dang! Oh my word. Sweetness! So all I did was hold this top part with a wrench and I could take out the entire bolt there. If that works, it works. That's out. Now, oh, that's way easier. Pull the entire CV axle out. Cool. Get a little power into this since I'm replacing this anyway. There we go. A little bit of gusto. Take this off. Push this out to the side. And then, should finally be able to drop this.
Pat, you're gonna want to watch
When
out.
we left off last time, I was having some issues. So on the separate control arm, it's tapered out. It sits perfectly in this knuckle. So sometimes if you hit on it, it won't do good. What I did is find myself a little bit smaller hammer with still less force. And then I'm going to get Adam with a crowbar, applying downward as I smack it, and hopefully that works. Woohoo! Okay, that's out of there. That's exactly what we needed to do. And if you can see, the reason for that is that it kind of sits in this hole. It's smushed up so far in that, I mean, shoot, this probably hasn't broken free in, what?
20 years?
Yeah, 20 years. So I kept the bolts on the bottom of the top so it didn't go anywhere, and take that off. Okay, so I got the knuckle off on this side. Upper control arm, lower control arm, that's all intact. And I got the knuckle off. If you look over here, still connected here. Yeah, so I got to the part where I was taking the actual knuckle off, and I can't separate the actual control arm. It's giving me some issues, so I was like, I'm taking the upper control arm off anyway, so just got that out. I'll get the shock out, sway bar out, and then, I don't know, we should be on our way. We'll just mirror on the other side and keep knocking it out. Just like that. Sweet. Oh yeah, that's done. Look at that. That is not ideal. Just got this tie rod off. So as you can see, there's a nut end on here. I just took a crescent wrench, put it on there, loosened it up, and it should just spin off. And there's a little bit of grease in here, so I'll make sure to mask that off so no dust gets in there. All right, the last part of this teardown is removing the sway bar. When we get this thing out, we can start working on the actual frame. So I was trying to get to the secondary bolt here to finally take out the sway bar. Unfortunately, the lower control arm is in the way of it. All I got to do is loosen these bolts up a little bit, and they should drop down, and that should be able to finally get this bolt and take this thing off. There we go. Very, very rusted in place. To the other side here. Finally freed up. Snake this out, just like so. There we go, beautiful. Now that we have all of the front suspension dropped and on the ground, it's time to tackle this frame. When I got this truck, it was extremely cheap, and it's pretty much been used as a workhorse its entire life. As you can see, it's got some surface rust, and all the way back. I mean, it's not too bad, but I think we can do better. What we're going to work on is grind all of this down and give it a fresh coat, so when we put the new suspension in, it doesn't look out of place. The tool that I'm mainly going to be using for this job is this Milwaukee grinder. And with this attachment, this wire wheel, is really going to eat up that surface rust and give us a better coat for our paint. Whenever you're grinding, make sure to wear adequate protection. I've got this mask here. It's going to protect me from all the particles that go through. Now the front of the frame is all cleaned up, looking ready to go. Time for the next part of the process. If you took this frame to a shop and said, okay, sand down all the rust, prep it, paint it, it could potentially cost you $1,000. Doing all the work yourselves is a great way to save a ton of money. Part of the reason they would charge you that much is the paint it would cost to completely recoat your frame. Since I'm doing it myself, I'm going to save a ton of money. For the first coat on the now prepped truck frame, we're going to be using Rust-Oleum Rust Reformer. Now this is going to act somewhat of like a primer base, where it's going to take all of the surface rust that's still left on and convert it to a paintable surface. I feel like we've already done this. This is like, is this even a bit anymore if this is just real life?
Nah, this is part 2. You need some help, right?
Yep, I do. I guess I found a use for that pizza box after all. We're going to use it kind of a back coat, so when I'm spraying it, I don't get any overspray. All right, I've given it a little bit of time for this rust reformer to dry, and oh my word, this works so well. Yeah, it looks brand new. So I laid out kind of the suspension that I'm going to be keeping. I'll probably just give a few coats of that, and now we'll apply it to the other side. So another reason why this suspension is so blown out, as you can see, I've got a shock that's completely snapped off here. And while I've been hauling heavy grain trailers, because I use this truck for work and around the farm, my actual bump stop that slides up here completely went off because I've had this truck max out with trailers, with goosenecks, hauling grain, stuff like that. So I have a quick fix for this right now. As you can see down here, usually a bolt would come through and secure it to the top, but this completely separated out. So what I'm gonna do here is I picked up this quick JB silicone for 10 bucks at my local Menards, and I'm going to apply paste around here, and then I'm gonna stick it up here with a jack to get in place. And hopefully we can save this bump stop because it really works well with hauling trailers. So what you do is you squeeze both of this JB weld and this mixes this together. Right now we got a mixing stick and just kind of there we go. So what we have now is a jack that is putting pressure up on this, and it's sealed all the way around. So hopefully pretty soon it could be hanging down like that side. I'll just let it cure and kind of see the results. All right, we finished this rust reformer and it did awesome for a first coat. It was kind of like a primer layer. Again, picked this up for like 10 bucks and that's super easy off the list. Now that everything is primed and ready, I'm going to use this Rust-Oleum high performance enamel. I'll do a couple base coats down, and this will actually serve as the actual paint for the parts, the suspension, and the frame. And I picked up a can of this for about $10 as well. All right, the first coat is done. Time for coat 2. All right, the final coat for the front is now on. Now we'll just kind of let this set up and cure, and then after this is all finished, we can start putting the front suspension back together. All right, the time has arrived to finally begin reassembling the front suspension. We got everything painted, we got everything good to go, it's all cordoned off, and we'll be going step by step and just throwing in the parts that I sanded down and painted, but also throwing in some special upgraded components, and I'll be telling you why we made the change and difference in material and kind of my thought process going through all this. So first thing that we're going to start with is the sway bar up in here, and then we can get the lower control arm back into place. First part that we're going to upgrade in this suspension rebuild is the tie rods. As you can see with the stock tie rods, they have a very small circumference. If you can see there, I can fit my pinky around it. And this is a weak link for four-wheel drive trucks. They're known for snapping and breaking. And if you can see, some of the ball joints were worn out. It was leaking grease. It's something we definitely want to replace with something new. So while we have the front end torn apart, I thought might as well get some beefier upgrades. Note to self, unpack tie rods before filming. I went with these KSP tie rods. As you can see, they're much thicker in diameter, and they have upgraded ball joints that won't fail as easily. After assembling these, let's see. Now that we got this tie rod, let me show you how to adjust to your factory. Now that I have this tie rod, let me show you how to adjust it, so if you're changing them out on your truck, you can have the same alignment. One that you just took off of your pickup and lay it down straight like this. If you measure from the zerk to the threads, it's 15 and a quarter about. So what we do, we'll rotate this out, extend it a little bit too far, we'll pull in a little bit, threads. And a lot of this is just playing around, seeing what works. All right, then we'll just tighten both down, and we can throw that in. And again, the good thing about these is that they come pre-greased. You can pretty much just throw them in. They even come with some new hardware. So a super nice upgrade. Again, much thicker. When we're in four-wheel drive, it's going to be much less likely to break or snap. Both of these were $200 for the set. All right, now you just take your assembled tie rod and thread it into place. All right, lastly, we're gonna put some red Loctite on the threads and then snug her up. Alright, it has been about 48 hours that I've let this plaster cure and set up. So now, the moment of truth, I'm going to lower this jack down and see if this is held up. Look at that. Yeah, perfect. Okay, the bump stop held up. And hopefully when we put load under that, it should be good. Perfect. All right, in order to put in the knuckle, we're gonna have to raise this lower control arm to an area that we can fit it for the bottom ball joint and then also the top ball joint coming down. So the next step is going to be reinstalling the torsion bars on the back there that is going to give this lift and hold the lower control arm in place. So we'll work on that next. Now, in addition to rebuilding all the suspension on my Silverado, now that I have it torn apart, it would be a perfect time to put in a leveling kit. I picked up this cheap rough country leveling kit on Facebook Marketplace for about $200. The kit not only comes with upgraded shocks, but it also comes with new torsion keys. As you can see, this is the top stock torsion bar, and it sits at this angle, but if we hold it up to the new one, at the same geometry, the edge is sitting at a different level. This allows us to crank and put more pressure on the key, that in turn cranks the lower control arm, giving you more lift. So I will assemble everything and have the knuckle that's right over there. I'll have that sitting here so that when we crank down on the torsion bar and it lowers this, everything will be connected and it will all move at the same time. So with that, I think we will jump into the next suspension component, which is going to be the upper control arms, and then we'll try to get the knuckle in place. All right, now it's time to talk about one of the most important and biggest changes that we're going to make in rebuilding the suspension and beefing it up. And that is the upper control arms. As you can see with the stock upper control arms, the angle is meant to be run flat, and that is fine for stock suspensions. But as you know, since we're putting in a leveling kit, we're going to be cranking the torsion bars. Now when you do that, that changes the angle of this top ball joint and pushes it outwards, which is much more pressure on this already 20-year-old worn out ball joint. To counteract that, the biggest change that we're making for this upgrade is forged upper control arms. And that's just any upper control arms, ones that have a more aggressive angle for the top ball joint. This angle allows us to actually crank the torsion keys, giving more lift while keeping a good angle to the actual knuckle. These are heavy duty ball joints, and honestly they will hold up to pretty much anything we throw at it, which is very important because usually the number one thing that breaks in leveling kits is your upper control arms, and more specifically this top ball joint. When I throw these in the truck, I'll kind of show you what I mean. This is our upgraded forged upper control arm, and it should slide in just like this pretty easily. Like I said, the angle of this is in a little bit, now straight up and down. So when we put our knuckle in, it should slide right in and give us just the right angle that we're looking for. It's not going to stress the ball joint too much. Easily greasable zerk on the top, and yeah, we'll just fit this in and get it all mounted up. Now the next thing we have to do is put the bolts in for our upper control arms. If you pay attention, there's these little nubs sticking out, and what that does is actually sets your alignment. Let me explain. With our old upper control arm, they have these adjustment points at the end. And as you slide these out, these actually adjust the angle that these sit. And if you think about it, with your upper control arm, as you push it in or out, that changes the angle of your knuckle, right? Whether it will sit out farther or in farther. And that in turn adjusts the camber of your wheel, right? So if you adjust it out a little bit, if you're aligning it, you jack up the wheel, jack it up, and then you get it to aligned, and you push that back out straight so you can drive straight down the road. The problem, though, is that since this is a linear system, every time you hit a bump or jolt, these risk falling out of alignment. And that's a problem that some Chevy owners have run into, is that they go off-roading or they go on a trail, and that progressive alignment jolts in and out a little bit, and then your steering is not straight anymore. Well, I have the solution for you. Instead of those sliders, what I got here are a upgraded version with individual drill holes. That way, when you set your suspension and align it, you can adjust and put the holes into these nubs, and it stays put. It doesn't slide one way or the other. You lock it in, and that way when you go off-roading, it stays perfectly aligned. By the way, I got these on eBay. They're super cheap. They showed up in like 2 days. $20 here for bolts, hardware, and the new alignments. Whereas I got the upper control arms for both sides, plus the caps, plus the hardware, $200. And as you can see with these notches on the side cut out, you can just fit these pretty easily into one of these holes, like so, and then it holds tight for your adjustment. Now, as always, please get a shop to professionally align this. I'm just going to use some photos that I took of my old alignment or my old positions of my upper control arm and set them. And then as soon as I get this thing on the ground, I'll get an actual alignment. All right, according to the instructions, 50 foot-pounds. 50 foot-pounds. There we go. And then obviously repeat the same process on the other side. Alright, if you guys couldn't tell, at the end of that time lapse there, I was really trying to get the bolt on this side of the upper control arm. Was not going hand tight. I was trying to loosen it. I was trying to use impacts. Nothing could get it off. Well, I eventually got a breaker bar, and it's I don't think it's supposed to look like that. Not good. So, snap the bolt, but that's okay. I can just get another one. I still recommend the kit for these parts. However, if you use one yourself, just use your own hardware. Again, it's a cheap kit, and cheap bolts do that. Trash. All right, one part's run to the store later, and we got a replacement bolt because, yeah, that's not gonna work. Let's throw these pieces in the bolt onto the truck. There we go. Got this side thrown in, got everything tightened up, and ready to roll for the upper control arm. Next thing that we're gonna throw in is the sway bar end link. A lot of times the piece that goes out or is bad are these sway bar end links. As you can see here, they're pretty rotted out and shot, and it was kind of clanking around when I first got the truck. So I went and picked up these KSP sway bar end links. These are like $30, not bad at all. But these are going to completely change the ride quality of my truck. I mean, these bushings are brand new. Everything is tight. And that way, when you're turning left to right, these actually control the sway of the vehicle and give a very tight feeling suspension. All right, so there are two bolts screwed in. So you unscrew them both from the center section. Up the top bolt in. Let's start hanging this bad boy up. This is tightened to 60 foot-pounds. Oh, there we go. There we go. You know, sometimes in a boat like this, yeah, what we're doing is really cool. You know, beefing up the sway bar end links, the upper control arms, tie rods, obviously, but I don't know, man. Sometimes it's the little stuff that really ties things together. Little stuff like replacing hardware or fixing and repainting bolts to add just a little bit of touches of small details. You know, it's the stuff that no one's gonna notice. You know, even the people that know a bunch about these trucks and platforms, even if they look super hard, they would never know. But it's more of a personal thing. It's not, you know, it's not doing anything half. It's full on all the time. It's putting all of your effort and paying super close attention to details. You know, it's the little stuff. That's kind of why I like building trucks so much, is that it's for myself. It's kind of proof to myself that, you know what, I can go the extra mile, and it all comes down to the details. And that's what, in my opinion, makes a really good truck build. Anyone can cut corners and, you know, kind of throw stuff together, but it's not how we do stuff over here. We go through and do stupid, minute details that no one's gonna see or notice, or it will make no difference, but it's because that's what makes a good build. Not saying I'm a professional at all, but sometimes I enjoy getting down to the details. Now that we got those bolts in, we're gonna torque them down, 81 on the bottom and 50 on the top. We can torque down the upper control arm. We're gonna just apply a small amount of grease. We can torque her down to 50 foot-pounds. Our knuckle is all set up, and that can move. This is good movement here. Let's go. Before we get anything to kind of tighten the front end up, like getting the tie rod end hooked up or putting the brakes in, well, it's still a little bit open. I'm gonna go ahead and slide in the CV axle. Pick this up. Perfect. Let's put this washer on. Alright, this goes up to 177. So I'm gonna max out my torque on here. Perfect. There we go. Slap the cap back on. Nice and snug. That's it. Woo. Oh, there we go. Not to damage the threads too much, but should be okay. Okay, we can now tighten up and torque down these tie rods finally, because everything is out of the way. And the nice thing about these KSP tie rods is they come pre-greased, so won't have to add any grease there. Slide these on. Should be able to torque these down. And these tighten down to 48 foot-pounds. Very nice. While the front suspension is completely torn apart, I went ahead and got a new set of brake rotors. As you can see, my old ones are scored up pretty bad and just kind of nasty, very rough, very bad brakes. Now these new brakes, they don't have a opening where usually on the old brakes you could screw a bolt in to hold the brakes to the actual calipers or to the actual knuckle assembly. But with these, you just tighten down the back bolts behind the brakes and it sucks the actual disc brake in. Alright, I don't have any brake clean to finish the brake job because you're supposed to clean everything off when you put new rotors in. But the last thing that we're going to do tonight is put these caps on. I just greased the upper control arm and should set these in and Man, those look beautiful. Yeah, we'll do both sides and then keep working another day. This is a little bit of an update of kind of what I had to end up doing after that clip. Really wasn't going in even with grease around the actual O-ring. So what I did was, since these are metal, I popped these in the freezer. When you freeze things, they slows down the molecules and shrinks them down. I was able to hit them in place and then they expanded, so they're firm now, and yeah, good to go. And we are nearing the end of the front suspension, so all we have left to do is throw in the shock right here and throw in the keys to crank these torsion bars back up, and then we'll be all done with the front. We're gonna be placing in the actual shock. And if you notice, I kept this string on so I can still move around the shock. It'd be kind of hard to compress it and form it, but now that that's in place and that's not moving, just like so, there we go. And then we can kind of fit this top piece in place. It should be good. Perfect. Finish up with tightening this bolt right here. Good to go. All right, just kind of rinse and repeat over here. All right, slide that up. Perfect. Yeah, that's beautiful suspension, if I do say so myself. The time has finally come. The last bit to do on the front suspension is to re-crank the torsion bars, put our blocks in, and then adjust the torsion keys. So same process as taking them off, just in reverse. Crank her up. Okay, and then preemptively, absolutely slathered anti-seize on these bolts, just so they won't freeze up on us. Sliding this in. There we go. All right, very slowly back this bolt out. There we go. And I don't know if you can see, but because this is a new key all the way down, so it's sitting on this piece, it's cranked even more. So that gives us a more aggressive angle on the front end here, giving some more lift. Kind of want to move the tool around so it falls into this top piece and stays put, because you do not want this sliding out under load. Finally, you want to measure distance. Go over the side down just to crank. Push out. A little bit lower. Perfect. There we go. Front suspension complete. Awesome. Now we got all the front end done. The rear end should really be a breeze. Now we can get a full look at the rear end here and take these drums off. Okay. Okay, rear pads, not bad. No leaking from the axle. We're good to go, baby. Get those years of great rust off. Oh man. All right, the rear suspension of trucks like these 1500s are very simple, and the process for redoing the suspension is going to be way easier than the front end. As you can see, this was, again, used as a farm truck, but oh man, that suspension is completely toast. So we're gonna go in here, clean this rear end up, replace the shocks, and then what we're going to do is remove this rear axle and replace it with a bigger one to give us a little bit of a lift. And yeah, I mean, with fully rebuilt suspension, this thing is going to be riding like a dream. The problem with the blown out rear suspension is that every time you'd go over a bump, it would buck and be all over the place and squirrely. So let's get to this thing looking fresh. All right, let's remove this absolutely destroyed shock. 21 mil for both the nut and the bolt. Yeah, that's pretty rotted. Woohoo! Yeah, that is completely rotted out. And honestly, that's pretty much it. I mean, we're gonna drop out these blocks, but I mean, yeah, very simple leaf rear suspension. So I think right now we're going to take a wire brush. I'm gonna clean up this frame and do the same as we did on the front. Primer, paint, and no, it should be looking awesome.
Hey. In grease testing the breach, spending breach that I made, putting pens to the sheets. Took a week to retreat from defending the...
I am happy with that. Beautiful, perfect, and primed. I mean, prime in a way that we're ready for paint. Yeah, we're gonna spray that rust reformer on the rear axle and the frame. But first, you definitely have to clean this thing up.
Dudes act like just see me flipping with the digits, now they turn into a gymnast. It's not how you
Once again, I will be using this Rust-Oleum rust reformer.
y'all was shooting on the way that I'm living, but I forgive them. Seek revenge with how I'm killing. Hey, bounce with me if you made it back from out the shadow. Moving forward, baby steps, cause in my back's 1,000 arrows. I'm still a work in progress, filled with liquor and tobacco. Trying to rid all of my demons on this road that's pretty narrow. So I just vent my sorrows out to drums and chop pianos. Always keep one in the chamber.
Now all that's left to do is let that dry, eat dinner, and then come back and get to painting. Now that this is all dry, time for the first coat of paint.
I was low and I was sinking, but I'm still coming. I was up late asking when the deal coming. I've been holding it together, but the wheels coming off, so I swerve and I try.
We're back in the morning. Gave time for all this to dry. We did the right process. We got all the rust off. And applying this coat is going to leave it protected for years in the future. So I'm going to finish up. I'm going to apply one more coat. And then I'm very excited because we're going to finish off this lift. We're going to switch off for some different blocks, change out our U-bolts, and put some shocks in. And this truck will be on the ground, ready to go.
Asking God, what does it mean? I see fate getting questioned, hate and depression, dark days feeling like you lost your connection.
Oh yeah, that's looking good. I'm so glad I'm done with this process. Again, takes a little bit extra time, but now that we did it the right way, we can get moving on this thing, and it's about to be looking awesome. I'll wait till this dries again, and then we'll start by dropping the axle down and getting the blocks switched out. All right, the blocks that we're going to go with are also included in the Rough Country leveling kit. Again, I picked this up on Facebook for $200. And the blocks that it comes with are about these 2-inch leveling blocks. They're gonna lift the rear a little bit to match the front. And if you can see here, they're slightly angled forward. And what that means is when we put them on the axle, it's going to fix the pinion of the drive shaft. And what I mean to say is the pinion angle. if we look at this, right now it sits level, which is perfect. But if we were to switch these out for a taller block, again, that would kind of change the angle by pushing it down, and that would cause binding in your actual drive shaft. So with the angle, that kind of pushes and rolls the axle back. So while it moves down, it comes up, and we keep the straight line so there's no binding here. Along with the blocks, the kit comes with brand new extended U-bolts, and that's going to compensate for the extra height that we gain here. And last but certainly not least, brand new shocks. You get the rear end running really good. Let's put them on. All right, now that the U-bolts are disconnected, what we can do is, since we have all the pressure on this stand, I left this side all connected. In theory, we should be able to lift the truck up, knock this block out, and put the new one in. So let's give her some lift. There we go. And that should allow us to knock this one out, slide this new one in. There we go.
Nice.
Good. Last thing that we need to put on, brand new shocks. This is going to completely change the ride of the vehicle. And I'll show you a trick on the best way to put these in. Right now they are under load and they're held here by spring. So what you want to do first is line up the top. Slide the bolt through.
Go.
Get that in place. Yeah, so usually when you put pressure under the axle, that's going to bow out the leaf springs, and you want those the string on to line it all up in place. But honestly, this is at full droop, so we're at a place where we can snip these off prematurely. Doing that. And line them up here. Now we're a bit off on this side, so what we're going to do is put pressure under the rear diff, like so. We're going to lower this just a bit. So now the rear diff is slightly under load, which means we should be able to slide these in.
Perfect.
Slide them in. Awesome. Turn them down. And then tighten up your top.
Man, she's stuck on good. Oh!
There we go.
You want some water? I guess you guys some water.
No. This is literally the last step. We're almost done.
There it is.
We're done.
Final snips.
Get the wheels on. So we're running. Okay, this is the moment of truth. Everything we've done. This is gonna be the first time on the ground, getting it off the lift. Very excited. It's been about a month. Just working on it in my free time. There we go. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It slipped on the thing. Okay.
Start her up. We're golden. Last but not least, now that the truck is under its own weight, torque the U-bolts that we just put in to 130 foot-pounds in an X pattern. First two steps are knocked out. What we did is we took off all the old suspension and completely sanded down the frame and repainted it. Step two, we put in all new suspension / rebuilt the old stuff. And now it's time for my favorite part of all of this, new wheels and tires. The tires that came on this truck were just cheap Walmart tires, all-terrains. And for what it's worth, they do a pretty good job. However, since we rebuilt the suspension, we can do a lot better. I went scrolling on Facebook and I found a set of these. These are some 33 12.5 R17 fuel mud grippers. This is a rugged terrain tire, which means it's a cross between an all-terrain and a mud terrain. And this is going to give fabulous traction on and off road. The size that we went with is a true 33 by 12.5 mud tire while keeping the same rim size of a 17-inch. What that's going to do is change what's called the tire aspect ratio. By keeping the same size diameter rim, you're actually getting more sidewall. And with these side lugs, even when we air down doing some off-roading, it's going to give me traction everywhere. Even though the stock wheels do fine, I think we can do much better. On Black Friday, I scooped up a set of these Rough Country Series 85 wheels. They are 17 by 9, negative 18, I believe, offset. I picked these up all in all with lug nuts and wheel adapters as well for $800. Bringing the total set that we got off Marketplace for about $1,500 if you throw in the spare tire.
All right, that looks absolutely sick. I mean, ooh.
I am very excited.
That is gonna look so sick.
The gray to match the paint job, black to match the new frame. Oh, it's going to be perfect.
I mean, side-by-side comparison. Good grief, that looks good.
All right, let's get rolling on the way to town and get these mounted and balanced up. So while we're in town, it's always a good idea to get a professional alignment job. Truck road, absolutely amazing. Love the suspension rebuild. We're at Big O Tires. They're gonna get the wheels and tires all mounted up and again with an alignment. Other than the steering being a little bit off because it needs to be aligned, the truck ride's amazing. So we'll come back in a couple minutes when we get this all up for the big reveal. All right, pulling up to Big O Tires right now. First time taking a look at it.
Dude, I don't even want to park by it. I feel like I lowered the value.
Oh, it sits way taller too. Look at that.
Oh my
Let's
word.
get out and check this thing out. Yo. Dude, okay, look at that fitment too. I mean, it kind of comes out perfect to the fenders. Yeah, I'm so glad I painted the brakes as well because you can see them all the way through. Oh my goodness. Looking at it from the back looks so sick. Yeah, for all of that, the alignment, mounting, balancing the wheels, it was only about $400. Very happy with the experience, very happy with customer service. Big O, always coming back. Love it. The truck truck is back, and honestly, it's looking amazing. All the way back, it rode phenomenal, and it's finally looking exactly how I wanted to. The advantage about building a truck is I know that everything is tight and secure, and I've got to build it exactly the way that I wanted to. It's time to answer the question though, is this cheaper than going out and buying a truck of actual value? Again, I did some looking on Facebook, and all the trucks in the area that had similar mileage but still had rust are going for $10,000, $11,000, $12,000. Let's see if we stayed under budget of 10 grand. When we first saw the truck on the side of the road, it was listed in its broken state for $1,500. We then found out it was a bit more damaged than we thought. So while it was at the shop getting a new front end put on, the frame also had to be straightened, and that was $5,000. Next up, I did some searching on Facebook Marketplace, and I picked up this bumper, skid plate, some lights, and some plastic pieces, all for $300, which is a pretty good deal. The next thing we did was arguably the best and most important thing we did on this truck, completely redoing the suspension. For all of the suspension kit, which is including the sway bar end links, tie rods, upper control arms, suspension lift and leveling kit, that was $650, which again was only done through barters on Facebook, some trades, and some really good deals online. Next up, while all the suspension was out, we ground down the frame and completely repainted it and gave it a good protective layer. All in all, for the tools for grinding down, the primer, rust converter, and paint was all about $100. So a lot of man hours and a lot of time that you would pay in shop time, but all in all, it was only about $100. Super worth it. Next up was, in my opinion, the two best deals that we got on this entire truck build. First up is a set of these 17x9 Rough Country Series 85 wheels. And normally these retail for about $1,200, but with Black Friday deals and promotions, I got all of the wheels for $800. Up next, I wrapped them in these 33x12 R17 Fuel MT grippers, and usually these retail for $1,600. Picked up all four for $700. Lastly, I got my tires mounted and balanced and a new alignment. All in all, $400. All in all, I say it's super worth it to do work on your own vehicle. I saved thousands of dollars in labor, and if I was going to buy a new truck, it would cost me probably $15,000 to get a truck of this actual value. Now, I will have a truck that will serve me for years to come and ready to put in more work on the farm. All of the hours that I've put in on this build, like spending hours fixing the alignment of the bumper, sanding out the frame, doing all of the suspension myself, if I took it to a shop, it would cost me $9,000. And I pretty much saved the value of this entire truck just by working on it myself. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.